No. All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to this week's episode of Boneyard Podcast. This week we got our guest, Kronuswinter, and one of my good homies, Madine. I'm not going to steal too much thunder. A lot of you guys already know Cronus, but I'm going to let him give his introduction. Cronus.
I am a Cronus and I require more BMATs. I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be said. Just give me more BMATs. Actually, salvage this work. Give me salvage. I can do that.
Rare mats, too.
Uh, People know where I am. Rare mats, I'll take rare mats too. Pecans, comps. Ooh, I'll take comps. I'll take everything. You know what? Just give me everything now. It's not just BMATs anymore. It's everything. Give me it all.
So, for you guys...
I'm making all their rare metals in here.
Ooh.
Sorry, found rare alloys. Excitement. Woo!
For you guys that don't know, Cronus is an absolute animal when it comes to Logi and Foxhole. He is the leader of WLL, Winter Legion Logistics. Isn't that it? Isn't that how it's Winter Legion?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he's in. No, you're good. He's in charge of that.
Nope. Sorry. Ignored me.
And
yes, I'm not trying to give a poor introduction. I'm just trying to give a short introduction. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good, man. I'm just letting the people know who you are for the YouTube side of it.
Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. I'm just trying to give them who you are for the YouTube, and it's all good, bro. It's a very chill podcast. This isn't like I'm not Joe Rogan or nothing, bro. Very chill here, but very big. A lot of anticipation to have you on here, so I'm just trying to give the best shout out I can for you. Anyway, this week, I wanted to ask you a few things, Madine as well. Actually, Madine, I didn't even give you an introduction yet. Madine, I'll just give you the floor. Go ahead.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Madine. I'm one of the Logi members of Bone. Usually you'll find me in a scrap field or running over people in the street because they shouldn't be there.
Don't you waste my BMATs like that. That's 8
street.
BMATs. Every time you run someone over.
Hey, look, it's
16
right of way.
salvage.
It's right of way, all right? You have the right of way, but my truck weighs more. So.
All right. I mean, if I'm in the truck, probably not. I
mean, I saw you run a guy over one time, giggle, come back, and he was stupid enough to pick his stuff out of the street, and you ran him over again. That was great.
That sounds like something I'd do.
So, yeah, man, I wanted to ask you a few things. One thing that's been really chewing at my mind since I've known you're going to be on this week, what do you think about this new ammo facility? What is your thought process, guys, on how this is going to shake up Foxhole? So I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to have massive impacts on, like, tank pushes and just not having to rely just on MPFs, really, and factories to make ammo. I think if you have a refinery in a hex, I think it's going to be huge. And I just want to know what you guys think about it. Do you guys think it was a good, bad thing? What do you guys think about the new ammo facility?
I'll let Madine take the first response, and then I'll follow in.
Okay. Well, part of it is you have to remember, like, back in the day, you could actually go up to the MPF and go, I'm going to make a 9-pack of 40 mil. Kind of a pain in the butt to do it now. So the fact that you can have a player-made facility anywhere, like you said, especially in a refinery hex, and be able to just absolutely stuff it full of EMATs and BMATs or CMATs, I guess it would probably be, to be able to make it anywhere, to where you're not tied down to an MPF, which, to be honest, a lot of times it's like, well, there's an MPF back there, or I could just make a couple in a factory 2 hexes away. What's worth more of the trouble? Now you can centralize between your entire Regi to, be able to make as much EMATs as you want, dump them in there, all localized. You don't have to try and do the song and dance of having two people there, for example, with two haulers to be like, all right, ready, 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 go. And try and put them all in before some Joe Schmo comes up and like, I'm gonna make some grenades. Um, you can coordinate with other Reggies as well. To be like, hey, we're gonna mass produce 40 mil. You guys want to go ahead and do the 68s or one of my particular favorites, Tremolas. Um, it also lets you. One of the things you can do. Granted, you have to hold the land for a while, but another thing you can do is as you're pushing forward, because obviously, usually the middle hexes in the map do not have MPFs. Now they can. So that drastically shortens logistic lines. You can again focus more. And again, if you're working with like usually a group will take east, middle, west. If you say have one or two Reggies that are going, for example, east, coordinating with them will be much easier. Again, sharing ammo. Some people uh, may not want to do the MPFing or facility stuff themselves, but that wouldn't necessarily mean they can't, show up to your facilities and be like, here's scrap, here's CMAT, here's explosive materials. We're going to grab like, 5 crates of 40 mil. We'll come back in a couple hours or the next day. And to be fair, I have not, typically my experience with the facilities is here's your scrap. I'll be back. I generally don't push any buttons because Lord knows I'll probably push the wrong one. Um, but unless I'm mistaken, they also make 10 crates instead of 9. So you get a slight more discount for the investment. Plus, you can have 5. So, I mean, if it's like we need tremolas tomorrow, that's what? 50 crates of tremolas the next day.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what do you mean? You mean how many crates does it make in a 24-hour period?
Yeah. If
It
everyone
makes
puts,
500.
Oh my god! Madine, you need to go clean yourself off. All right, I know.
I'm going to
That's
put
awesome.
tremolas in every single STD I can find.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
But that's,
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no. I mean, if you have more to say, say it. It's just go on.
I was also going to mention the fact that they swapped the one for making the wire these hammer or clubs and knives being made in a facility to the uniform facility, which
Mm-hmm.
again, you run out of tanker uniforms and NG uniforms pretty quick. So being able to mass produce those near a front line when there's not an MPF, you can't BF those, but you see what I'm saying, where there's maybe not necessarily a facility or a factory, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that being very useful too, because tanker uniforms just seem to disappear real quick, because, they really need to change the engineer one. Hopefully that'll come with airborne. Just needs to be a little bit better than the tanker one. But to be fair, I am not much of a facility person other than the dump stuff off and clear the scrap field. But that's just my general take on the ammunition factory or infantry arms factory, whatever they actually the
Yeah,
real
it's
title for
basically
it is.
Everyone's calling it
it's
the
an
ammo
ammunition
fact.
factory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
An ammo factory.
yeah. Being able to march an MPF forward as you take over more land just seems like there's going to be a lot of shells being fired next war.
Yeah, more than likely. Um.
Use a 60 and an infantry? Yes, please.
Well, yeah and no. So
Yeah, it's about sending a message. I'm just giving you
you.
crap.
So the thing is with the new ammo factory for 40, 68 and Tremolas and RPGs and all that. The thing is that it wouldn't change too much if it wasn't for the fact that it's a set it and forget it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to click any buttons. You don't just get 9 crates like at the MPF. you get as many crates as you put explosive powder and not M subs, construction material in.
Yeah.
It's a set it and forget it. Somebody refines 5,000 explosive powder. You can fill it up to 32,000. You can put 32,000 in your private queue as well, so you can have technically 64,000 explosive material per person. And it's a set it and forget it. You're going to have a lot more ammo present on the front lines. Everything will be more in abundance. And hexes, like, if you kind of look at, like, Lockmore right now, it's all salvage with a refinery. What is it good for? Make explosive powder, make a fuck ton of tremolas. I actually wouldn't be surprised if this building gets removed from the game. Because all you have to do is, you could use diesel power, you put a small train with a couple of LTSs, you just pump it full of diesel, and then the hexes with no source of power outside of diesel and salvage is like, what are you going to do? You're not going to make anything besides inefficient CMATs, so you might as well just use it. And you're good. A place like Cinderwick. All right, cool. Make it there. I could either see it getting nerfed or the power being increased to a maximum of 30 at least. Because it's just that good.
With that, though, Cronus, can't we run facilities with the past update? Can't we run facilities on low power? It's not as efficient, but wouldn't you still be able to run those buildings?
Well, I mean, you could run at that 1 watt of power, sure, but how many crates does it make per hour? I'm not sure what the efficiency is, but if you went from 500 crates a day at max power to 50 crates a day, I can kind of see that being an issue. If anything, I wouldn't even protest the idea if the developers added a special requirement for the mass production facilities that they need to have full power to function, but it's just like we have 2 small arms factories right now in the south of Cannon Smoke, and we're not using them that much. And I mean, I'm not even telling people to use them or put anything in them. I'm still getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crates of sticky grenades and ignifists, and I ain't doing anything. They're just there to consume power, and that power is on my sulfuric reactors. I get more sulfur, I make more stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the new buildings at least get nerfed in some shape or form. It's just so strong. It's just so strong.
I just don't know. And this is actually what I love to talk about in these kind of things what's the worst thing outcome that happens if front lines are stocked to the brim?
I mean, you ever see a 70-man Cutler team that just crosses the border and instant deletes a concrete meta piece, and it just, like, imagine never running out of cheap Cutlers or cheap Tremolas, and you just keep going. So you cross the border, let's say 70 of you die. What does that cost in Arbats and Cutlers or in Lumières? It's like nothing with the regular MPF. So that's nothing. You all die, you cross the border, you instant gib some concrete, and you just keep doing that. Like, because now recon uniforms, even though there's almost no reason why in the next update why you couldn't spawn and just have everybody equip recon outfits. And just imagine a front like that. Somebody's like watching a front and going, oh, there's only like 20 collies there, and it's like 40 or 50 because everybody's just in recon uniforms or something. I mean, they're not going to cost anything. And I have a feeling the uniforms aren't going to cost 24 watts of power. If they do, that's interesting. I didn't check. I only just paid attention to the ammo.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big one. I didn't check it either. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, like, I feel like these things can already be done with
less actions required.
Yeah, I think you're just streamlining these actions, and that does make a big difference.
So when I tell people I need beer EMATs, right, because I like cooking in front of the regular factories, even though I'm a facility LARPer now. In the past, I would just tell people, set your queue public, and I can pull them as they're done. And that was fantastic. And it's set it and forget it. Do you know how many people, if you tell them, okay, go to the refinery, refine your BMATs, refine your EMATs, then when they're done, give them to me. That is a lot harder to convince someone to do versus put some salvage in the refinery, refine it, and then give it to me. And you don't have to do anything. That's it. You're done. It's done.
You wouldn't even have to just put it in public, to be honest. If everyone put it in public, you can just grab trucks and slap it into the building, because then it goes into public again, and then you can make public go to private with with that building. I mean, that is super strong, but I guess that's kind of the magic of it, though, is who's willing to really push these things forward and really push things into overdrive, stop the stalemate. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of Cutlers, and I've been on many Tremola teams, and I know that with this massive amount of, or this influx of ammunition, it's going to be crazy. I really don't think the 68 or the 40 mil is the bad part of this. I really don't think that's bad at all. I really do. The more you talk about it, I think the Tremolas and normal RPGs need to be taken out of that building, because the rushes, like you said, are just going to be so prevalent. I mean, tank rushes, they're not as easy, and you still have to load the tanks. Plus, you still have to, do the RMATs, that MPF. Tanks can also be defended a little bit easier. I do agree, though, the more you look at it and talk about it, though, that Tremolas or at least Tremolas and RPGs. I still think AP RPG would be fine, but I think both of those I think they need to go out of that building. That is strong.
Yeah. The more players will get more kills because it's cheap to use infantry, where it's also easier to hide infantry with recon uniforms to get them into position to do a funny. Like, if you're going to go partisan in somebody's facility, you absolutely do it with recon outfits on. But if you got to do it with a tank, you got to hug the border, which, good and bad. 40 mil and 68 in abundance, it just means people don't have to... Like, if you saw a seaport with 400 crates of 68 or 40 mil, I don't think you're going to give a crap if you shoot infantry with it, or literally everything that moves. Like, you might as well use 68 to blow up buildings at that point. Like the...
You're just going to shoot everything you perceive as a threat, which is everything.
Right. What's that 68 that the Wardens have on the half track? What's that called? The Niska?
The blinder.
Yeah, the blinder. Thank you. Yeah. No. Yeah, so they use that. I've seen them use this to kill AT pillboxes because it outranges it almost. So, like, you shoot the 68, the AT pillbox maybe gets 2 shots off and then backs off. I mean, I've seen people do that.
I mean, the other thing, though, like, I do like the idea. I just think the implementation wasn't very well thought out. But who knows? Maybe we try it for a war and it isn't the most OP thing we've ever seen. Maybe it's not, crazy, but who knows?
Another thing they may be future-proofing is... I mean, we're going to have to get some other ships. Maybe there'll be ships more equipped with 40 and 68 versus, say, like a cruiser-type ship.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're future-proofing it for that. Yeah.
I mean,
or even just, another ship for ship-to-ship combat that's bigger than a gunboat but smaller than a destroyer/frigate.
That will be very interesting to see. I personally, what I think this is, in all honesty, I think what you said was exactly right, but I think this is a precursor to the ammo for airplanes. I think that building is what's going to be the maker of the bombs in the bomber that we've seen. I think that's what these are going to be. I think that ammo for these planes are going to be fully facility, and I think that this is where they're going to be adding that in. I think that's why this building is getting tested now. Realistically, I think that airplane ammo are going to be made in these. Like, obviously 12.7 and stuff's not a big deal, but like ammunition types are going to be made out of a building like this. I don't think it's going to be in a large shell factory because they're not shells, they're bombs. I guess 68s are shells, but and rockets, but
maybe we'll get a what was it, a C-130 fucking Jelly Green Giant. It's like, oh, that thing's circling, isn't it? Yeah, here comes the 40 mil.
So I don't know. That's maybe where I could see that they're kind of foreshadowing how ammo production is going to be done for air. I'm not gonna lie. I almost feel like we need another ammo type for Navy. Crazy as that sounds, I think there needs to be a new ammo type for boats. I think I think there needs to be something between the mortar and the 120. I just don't. I don't see a cruiser getting a heavy mortar, but I also don't see it getting a big old gun either. That's to say they even add cruisers. But actually, since we're talking about Navy, what do you think about that gunboat change? What do you guys think about the Kali gunboat swap?
One moment.
I can answer first.
You can reply first. I just gotta.
Yeah, you're good.
You found some rare metals. I know how it is, man. It's cool. I mean, just the speed boost alone is nice because 8% doesn't sound like much, but when it's like you got to maneuver. Now, I mean, this is even before I talk about the maneuverability that they added to it. Just having more speed allows you to maneuver better, allows you to change your pursuit better, or need be run away. The maneuverability. Now they added the chicken plates on the side and raised the front to where it's much harder to shoot the driver and observation guy, binocular guy, whatever you want to call it, out of the front. And the way they redid the guns, obviously, they point more forward, which makes us much more vulnerable in the back. But the little bit I believe, Kronos, it was Legendary's video that I watched where he was showing the maneuverability of it. And yeah, where we can't really defend ourselves from the back, but when you push the button and half a second later you're like 180 degrees almost, it's not as much of an issue.
You're not going to be seeing the back.
So.
You're not going to be seeing the back.
If you get to the back like that, you deserve to get that kill.
Yeah.
Either somebody wasn't watching or you got outplayed. But
yeah, I mean, I just didn't like how open the Colonial gunboat was personally, because it felt like you could just easily strafe the thing and you're dead. Like if you had a machine gun, you could like kill the entire crew. You can't really do that for the Wardens. I mean, you can.
Dying to a speedboat is just not a good feeling.
Man, I don't know. I think so. I don't use the gunboats enough to comment on them too much. I just didn't like the Colonial gunboat before the change, and after the change, it still feels good. It feels better, but I mean, you're still one shrapnel shell away from having no crew on your ship.
Yeah, I being honest, like, Bone isn't really big on Navy, but I will say, obviously lucky shots can't be accounted for, but realistically, I don't think the Warden gunboat's going to be beating our gunboat anymore in, like, a head-to-head. I mean, obviously there's always a lucky shot. What's that?
Yeah, that's a little confusing because in a head-to-head, they have if the shell doesn't bounce, you get instantly disabled if they hit you with the foe breaker. 2 foe breaker, you're instantly disabled, not counting the mortar shell. So,
We would have
um,
3. We would have our mortar plus 2 Dacus. You would have 3
yeah, but
guns in the head-on.
that's only, but yeah, but isn't that only if you're like perfectly head on? Which, let's be realistic, you're probably going to be starboard or port to each other a little bit. So it's more like it's going to be more equal in the sense that on a head on, you're going to have your Dacus and they'll have the foe breaker. But I definitely can see the 30 mil being stronger than the RPG. Yeah.
I definitely think with our 30 mils on there, I think we're gonna shred Warden gunboats. They can't run away. Like they can, obviously, they're still a little bit faster by a knot. But I think that the Kali gunboats are definitely gonna be way more versatile in the way that they can take on Warden gunboats. Because much like you were saying, if we are in the head-on, that's the one place they somewhat have an advantage. And as soon as it's starboard to port side, or starboard to port side, it's over. Like that they can't defend themselves outside the mortar. Um, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be a really tough fight for them. And the fact that we can catch them now and get in turn fights a lot easier, and we have a better turn rotation as well. I think you're gonna see a lot more Kali gunboat wins in the water, and I think that's gonna equal big time when you're talking about big naval ships and assisting in naval ship battles. When you can take out the pesky little gunboats and do little swarm circle tactics on big boats, I think it's going to be a
Or if you make the
lot.
mistake and get too close to for example, a frigate, and just like cowabunga it is, and just charge it, you're hitting with 3 guns.
I mean, yeah. Now,
I mean,
obviously,
you're
30
probably not going to
mil.
last very long, but sometimes it's like, oh crap, we got too close. All right, just charge them. We're about dead anyways, and you can do more damage that way. Not necessarily the best of tactics, but sometimes just the terrain. You're like, oh, we're getting too close to a rock. Oh, there's another gunboat. Just the fact that we now have more options and it's more versatile, I think is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still think there are vulnerabilities with it. Obviously,
Oh,
the
yeah,
big
definitely.
one being a lot of the crew can get disabled or knocked out if it's a ranged fight. Um,
Especially if it's like a 120 or a you know,
150.
if you get nailed by one of those, you're not going to have a good day because most of your crew is going to be looking at a screen going spectator.
Yeah.
But with the added speed and maneuverability, you're going to be a lot harder to hit with those shots, even with the accuracy that natively comes with a frigate or a battleship, whatever theirs is called. The whatever, I forget what it's called.
It's the Callahan class battleship,
Oh yeah,
of
take
course.
your old man and shove it up your. Either way,
Yeah, I don't know.
but
I'm interested to
being able
see.
to wiggle around a lot. Well, and not just that. Like if you're, um, say you're assisting pushing a bridge or something like that, to be able to, somebody's on the ridge, for example, with a cutler or something like that, having more speed and maneuverability, you can get out of the way and away from the cliff face or a building much quicker, as opposed to like trying to just, okay, back up, back up. No, you just, and you're able to 180 real quick. So again, it makes it more versatile. And for QRFing, trying to get, wiggle around, say, rivers, through bridges and stuff like that.
So, I do want to ask you guys: were you, I guess, a little frustrated with how the devs pretty much said that like our gunboat is not supposed to be good, or as good as the Warden gunboat? What do you guys think that's true now, or do you still like? Do you think? I guess what I'm trying to ask: A,
More so.
do you think we're more even now than what they're perceiving, or B, do you think we're really going to be still getting underclassed? Like our gunboats are still going to be getting outclassed by theirs.
Well, obviously, much more with the well, I would say previous the current gunboat. I mean, one splash hit and where half your crew's gone, dead or bleeding. Now with the chicken plates on the side, um, that's much harder for them to nail your crew with a foe breaker or uh, well, most of theirs don't use the mounted bone saw, which is bow breakers are their best one, honestly. Um, it'll be harder to decrew. Um, we can wiggle better with the new one. Sorry, I should have mentioned. With the new one, we can wiggle better. We can dictate the turn fight better. Because one of the advantages that they have with theirs is their mortar is a turret, and that really kind of screwed us up with the old gunboat. Because yeah, we were a little bit more maneuverable than them, but our turret is not. Uh, it's like a what 270, 260 arc, like it can't shoot backwards.
Hmm.
So it did make some turn fights bad if they happen to break turn, shift or not shift, uh, spacebar turn and predict your turn radius, and that would help them keep their mortar on facing you. Now with the more speed, more maneuverability, you can double back on yourself and have a better chance to fight them off. And again with the chicken plates, because it's hard to turn when your driver gets a RPG up the butt. That does make a very disappointing day when you get your butt cheeks clapped by a foe breaker. But the current one, I mean, the game is asymmetrical, so I mean, think of like the freaking HDD, mass produced. Oh, it does 1050 or 1050 damage. Mm. I mean, them having a better gunboat than us currently is yes annoying. But one, ours is a smidge cheaper. I think it's what 15 cheaper. I'd have to double check that. I'm not 100% sure.
It's not ridiculously cheaper, but it is
Yeah,
slightly cheaper.
I mean, back in the day that was more prevalent, but now with the vast amounts of components you can get, it's not as much of an issue.
Right.
Um, and something actually, me and Berg were talking before. Another thing about our current gunboat is now with the way the side guns can face more forward, we can help support landings because we can put two lamentums on that and just hose down the beach along with the mortar. Uh, I don't know if that completely answered your question, Berg, but
I mean, yeah, I just
A lot.
what's that?
sorry, I tend to
I was just
ramble
gonna
when I.
say that answered a lot.
Yeah, I mean that was good. What do you think, Cronus? I mean, do you think it's going to be on par, or do you think are you still wanting a little bit more out of it, or
So for me, it's not even a question of whether or not the gunboats are balanced. I mean, how do I put this? I helped produce a lot of ships this war. I've helped produce a lot of ships in the past, and originally when ships released, I mean, when they were originally released, the best ship on the water was the gunboat because it's just like cheap spam. It kills everything. Life is good. Um, the reason I bring this up is because we're talking about how things should be asymmetrical to a point. And I'm like kind of iffy on that because look at all the time, energy, and work that a lot of people put into like making ships. And if you make it asymmetrical with ships, but the scales of power are whatever your opinion is tipped in one direction or the other, it really is hard to encourage people to want to invest the amount of time needed to do something. Like if you openly admit to your player base, oh, well, this side has the better X or Y. And statistically, if you look at the data like mined from all of the ships and stuff, there's not a huge difference between the destroyer, and the frigate. There's not a huge difference in like in health and armor or
Oh,
well, speed. So my problem with all ships, including the gunboats, is if you're asking people to invest time into doing something, if they no longer believe investing that time is worth it because of XYZ statistic, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, imagine playing like a competitive game, like, I don't know, like StarCraft 2, and you're playing Terran and you're fighting Zerg. I know this is a fucking awkward example, but like, you happen to know that the person playing Zerg is just a horde player. So you would obviously go like with fire, or you go with tanks to get the artillery with the splash damage. But instead, you're just like, nah, I won't use that. I'm going to use something statistically worse. It doesn't make sense, right? Like, people don't invest their time in something that doesn't make sense to them.
well,
Like,
go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
right, it's just because I have one gripe with the frigate versus the destroyer argument. It's so much easier to load the frigate. So much easier to load the frigate.
Oh, dude.
Well, somebody had an orgasm.
Dude, okay. I have harped on this. I shit you not, everyone in Bone is probably laughing their ass off that's watching this. Like, I shit you not. That is my biggest complaint between the frigate and the destroyer. And not even, there's a lot of things I actually have issues between those two. One, they get more of a spot accurate. They don't have to spot two azimuth distances.
They don't have to spot two different distances.
Exactly.
And the azimuths are near exactly the same because your guns are clustered together.
Correct. Plus, they have a quicker... So the argument is they have the same fire rate, but we don't have the same reload rate. They do, but we don't have the same reload rate.
No, they do.
What I'm saying is we have to run once we run out of those like 55 shells in the back. Plus they have more shells than us, but we have to run all the way to the front of our boat to the ammo cache, all the way to the back.
Which means you have to avoid the people who are doing repairs, and if somebody is ever so slightly not hugging the wall, you get stuck, you got to yell at them to move, and then they got to panic, and then they move, and that's one less second of them hammering. I don't like this idea that everything is focused on the statistics of the ships. That helps, but when you also look at the layout, like the fact that you cluster one group of people right here in the back of a ship, they don't really have to move versus the other ship that needs people rotating like they're on a freaking hamster wheel. Yeah, there are just certain things that I just don't like about the balance.
You're preaching,
and
to the
it's
choir,
kind of
brother.
why it's also why I don't get on ships. I also don't like. I mean, I'm just gonna throw this in there, even though it's kind of off subject. I don't like the current torpedo.
I think it's busted. I think that I can't like patch my boat up, even if I put the metal beams in it. It's so hard to outbucket that water rate that it's not even worth it to put the metal beams in. Just shut the doors and you lose that room. You're fucked.
So that's not even my biggest concern with the idea of, hey, okay, one time in Red River, I said, we're going to take a destroyer out. We're going to do a little training exercise and teach people how to use a destroyer. We happened to meet a submarine. Now, getting the destroyer, equipping it, fueling it, waiting for people to show up, getting it from ash fields into Origin, turning it and getting it out into the water, only to get torpedoed in Fisherman's, and then having to, well, obviously you do the whole song and dance, patch the hole, bucket the water, engage the sub, but it ran away. It just ran away. And it was like 40 minutes, 50 minutes of my life of doing nothing but holding W. And then it's like, what are the options? You have to go back. You have to go into dry dock. You get it repaired. You wait an hour, whatever, for the one torpedo, hour and a half. And like the torpedo just ruins your whole day. Like there's no option to like say, okay, we're at 10% health. We're at 20 no, we're not 10% health. We lost 10% of our health or 20%, whatever a single torpedo does. There's no option of saying, okay, it's time to keep going on with the operation. And no, it's okay, you have to
So back
go
home.
back and get repaired. Yeah, because a lot of people don't have the time and commitment nor give a crap to sit there and be bucket monkeys for the whole adventure. And God forbid if you take a second torpedo, like that there's just too many things I hate about a permanent hole in your ship. I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate the mechanic. I will keep saying I hate it. And if somebody says, Cronus, that's really harsh. Go play a game like, I don't know, what's the other game out there? Sea of Thieves. Go play Sea of Thieves. And just imagine if that same mechanic was in that game. Yeah, sure, not same game, not same style, not same anything. But again, just like...
Imagine a permanent hole in there that you can't patch. And you have to go dock
Imagine
that
if you-
sumbitch and then sit on the island and your whole crew's sitting on an island for an hour. Yeah, put a timer on, wait an hour, and then you can go sail back out. And if you take another permanent hole, go back to the island, wait another hour, and kiss your day goodbye. Kiss your whole weekend planned operation. Kiss that motherfucker goodbye. It's cooked.
Yeah, you can't even make a set. You can't even make the choice of I'm at 50% health to keep going. I really can't do much, so I'm leaving.
Chiming in on that, it's not the torpedo, but Berg, you remember that time we were pushing? I think it was like Endless Shore with our destroyer. And we pulled up real close to the cliff face, and somebody threw 2 mammons and broke our front gun.
Yep.
And then
they were flasks, but
no, the back one was a mammon. Sorry. Yeah, 2
I know
flasks
they
broke
were
our front gun.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, I guess we'll just turn the boat around and nail it. Okay, now our back gun is disabled. 3. What? Really? I guess we're going home now. That's actually something I have some notes that I was going to bring up. That was something I was going to bring up later. For that big of a gun, being a destroyer or a battleship, I personally think it should not be able to be disabled by anything smaller than a mortar.
I mean, I agree. I don't think a 75 millimeter from a Sherman is going to knock out a fucking battleship's main gun. Like,
I mean, that one, I mean, okay, look, if you get a Talos close enough to a battleship, you deserve to get some...
a 75 from a Sherman's like a 40 million game, is what I mean. But yes.
The fact that, like, you know, hero of the day up on the cliff, you know, threw a flask full of alcohol and blew up our freaking gun, man, that was not a fun trip back.
Well,
that goes kind of what Kronos was saying. It's like, well, now we got to spend 30, 40 minutes
driving back.
And just, well, that was a fun op. I guess, okay, half the people are logging because, you know, that was fun.
Yeah, I generally, Cronus, oh my god, dude. Like, preaching to the choir, bro. Thank you. I did have an idea on how for them to not have to redo the boat, but just...
FK for just a moment, sorry.
Okay. I had an idea for them to just swap the orientation of certain objects on the boat. And so it wouldn't be a full rehaul. It would be just more of a redesign, kind of like what they did with their gunboat.
Can I interrupt with you?
Go ahead.
Do you want to know the easiest fix in the whole wide world that would make me happy and solve every problem to ever exist, and it would be fair to everybody, and nobody could probably complain about this?
Drop it. What's up?
Give the Colonial and the Warden frigate, the frigate destroyer, give it an extra ammo rack. So for the Colonials, it'd be in the back where the other gun is. And every gun gets its own spotter. That's it. Just add a couple of more seats. You do that, and then you can't say it was difficult spotting for both guns because now you actually have coordinated. You can actually, for the Colonials, it would actually be a little better, in my opinion, because now you can coordinate two guns firing from two different spots to uh, more easily dial in hitting with multiple targets at once.
Yeah.
Um, it would be for everybody, and it would solve so many problems, and it would solve a lot of stress and communication issues that a lot of people have with some of the ships. At least personally for me, I would really appreciate that because I think that would actually, I think that would do the trick for everybody. Just add a spotter seat for every gun, so the 120 on the destroyer and the frigate, and then on the battleship, the wardens would get 3 extra spotters or 3 spotters in total, and the colonial no they. Okay, so now that's an interesting with the battleship because you have to consider the fact that the wardens have 2 120s and 3 big guns, and
That's
the
5
colonials have
extra
2 big
seats.
guns and 1 120.
That's
So
5 extra
would you
seats
give
for them.
So how about this? Only the 150s get extra guns, and that would be 2 for.
Well, let me throw this in for you before it gets too. I honestly, to tell you, I really do like your idea of getting gunners, actual spotters in the seats.
Yeah.
I really like that idea, but I also it would. Okay, so I had this conversation last week with Raging Thunder on my podcast, and one of the ideas he had was, he really hates the colonial submarine. I mean, it's really hard to like it. And so I said, okay, I get it. Their submarine is just, right at the moment, it's just dominating us. But he said, if they would just swap the orientation of this, move the back 120 to the front where the 40 millimeter sits, the dual gun, split the dual gun of the 40 millimeter and put them where the launchers are, the depth charge launchers, and then put a hedgehog on the back spot where the back 120 went. Put a hedgehog. Do you know what a hedgehog is?
The depth charge thing.
It shoots a line of depth charges, and it has like 4 or 5 loads usually, and it shoots like 4 at a time. So he said, if we were a real destroyer, you would have the somewhat better armament in the anti-submarine section, and that would be a bigger difference. Is they would still keep their depth charge launchers, they wouldn't have any nerfs to their thing. We would put both of our guns more in a centralized location at the front near the ammo compartment, and then your depth charge team or your submarine team would be in the back of the boat. Already where it really is, except now you're upgrading the depth charge launcher. Instead of 2, your output would be 4. You're centralizing where both guns shoot because you're only 2 meters apart. The ammo's closer, and you're splitting up the dual 40 millimeter and having side protection against small boats. That's all buffs. True. But the problem is there's too much of a correlation, like you said. The frigate is damn near outside 4,000 HP in armor. It's exactly what the fucking destroyer is. I don't know if I can cuss on your stream. Sorry.
You can do whatever you want.
It's the exact same thing. Like, it almost is. Theirs is faster. Theirs carries 150 more shells. And the loading thing is the biggest problem. And also how, close their guns are, for accuracy. It's just... if you swap that gun placement around, like I was just saying, you don't even need to add the other seats, because then the spotter can do exactly what it can do on the frigate. And then you also upgrade the destroyer and make it an actual step above what a frigate should be. And then you would have them have a weaker frigate but a stronger sub. We would have a stronger destroyer. We would... you get, that would be decent asymmetry without busting the game. Because our submarine, although no one loves it, It's not that far off from being okay. I think if you just gave it more battery, like where it would stay underwater longer, I think that would be a really good way to balance that boat out. Give it double the time underwater with battery, because it's a bigger boat. It should carry more water and it should carry a bigger battery. If you do those two things, the Colonial Navy goes from being somewhat, in the way I call it, Lawson gunboat, Lawson sub, tie-in destroyer. Well, I would almost even say still a loss in frigate destroyer and a tie-in battleships, to gunboats are now more competitive. We lose in submarines, but we win in frigate destroyer. Still tie up top. I think the biggest... I think you patch that hole between frigate and destroyer, and you make a destroyer an actual destroyer, and you make the frigate a little worse like it should be, as they stated it should be. But then you go back into your point of what you said earlier. If you have something that's just objectively worse, why would you do it? That's how...
It's not necessarily...
different jobs, though. You know?
So before the Lunaire existed with the buffed Tremola, my biggest problem, and with anything in Foxhole, when you want to balance the game because you are stuck with server numbers, you can only have 200 versus 200 people. The last thing you kind of want to do is you don't really want to make one side better at... You don't want to make one side carry or have the ability to do more damage than another person. How do I explain this really?
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Like to me, the Cutler should have a clear advantage for doing, like, you can sit in a trench and fire at defenses and then it can't hurt. And then the Lunaire obviously has the advantage of it can fire over anything and you can't
over
hurt
anything, and you can fire
right. So like
pillboxes and scramble out of the way. Whereas a Cutler,
yeah,
it's a lot easier to use a Cutler scrambling up and nailing a tank with it than a Lunaire.
I mean, that's not the ease of use isn't what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that when all things are equal player count wise, at no point should, like, obviously not everybody's going to carry a Cutler, so I'm not sure how to explain this, but
feels like it's
if a group of colonials said we're going to go destroy a 10,000 piece concrete piece, a 10,000 health concrete piece, they shouldn't have to use more people than the wardens to achieve that goal, right? Like, if I'm going to go kill this 10,000 health piece of concrete, I need 10 people, and if that changes between either side, that's not fair. That's just my opinion about Foxhole in its current state with the way numbers work.
I got your explanation, by the way. I think I know how to word what you're talking about here. The price per person should equal the same effect per person. So if I spend 100 BMATs on Collie and 100 BMATs on Warden, they should have equal effect on their outcome with different gear. Right now, it's more of a, this Warden has a 100 BMAT kit, the Collie has a 100 BMAT kit, the Warden can get a slightly better outcome on his 100 BMAT kit via the Collie. Is that kind of what you're trying to explain there, kind of? A little bit?
Time and energy wise, how it gets done can be asymmetrical, but if a colonial has to spend an hour doing something that takes the Wardens 50 minutes, that accumulates over the course of the war.
Well, and this is a side thing, but to be honest, a lot of people might hate or love this take on this. I personally, just going with what you're saying here, I personally think people think that the Kali 120 is actually less work to implement and make use of what it is. In my opinion, and the more I've played Kali, well, I've only played Kali, really, but the more I look at what you have to do for either side, because like we're 50 meters shorter and we're 50 meters longer in the 150 game, but in the 150 game we play exactly how they play in the 120 and 150, which is entrenchments and like ammo pallets, octagons and pallets. The problem is our 120s rely on one of two ways to get ammo. We still are traditional pallets, which require crane, so we're really not even any more mobile than they are. And if it is, it's slight. But to be honest, you either have to do that and you have to go buy cranes to load it, or you have to invest in a shitload of extra work for still 50 less meters. You know, you have to make a heavy hauler to move our stuff. We don't have a really good way to haul our guns up to be true mobile already. We don't have a good way outside the heavy hauler. The trailers, again, are facility extra. So, like, what I'm trying to say is our 120, we're supposed to be this mobile thing, and we're supposed to be this quick, snappy, like, really good, but we're still a place down or emplacement. We still rely on pallets just as much as them. And if we aren't relying on pallets, we're spending almost... I think if you're doing two heavy haulers plus the cart, you're looking at 200 plus, I don't even know what the cart costs, pecans extra, just to do what our gun's intended to do. And in my opinion, like, that really starts... That's the first indication of where the extra... We have to do so much extra to make our gear work via them. Because their total investment is the exact same as ours with gun, and it's actually cheaper. But gun, ammo, but then all they have to do is shovel. And if they want to upgrade their trench, they can. But for us, we have to do so much more to be... Like, we have to push that gap to be effective, you know what I mean? We have to push in that 50-meter gap.
So, allow me to step in here. I've been meaning to say something. I've just been a little busy.
You're good, dude.
So here's the thing, is that I don't necessarily think it's an equipment imbalance or the amount of work that needs to be done imbalance. I think it's just a simple situation of communication where you can say, hey, I'm doing a 120 op, come over here and help me out. The problem stems from... If you see somebody who is taking a moment to build a base, this is from my perspective, from how the Warden artillery works. You're watching somebody grab a CV. That's slow. So you have more time to see people. You got to talk to people. You need a crane. That's also slow. So you need more people. You need to start getting people. So you're like, hey, listen, I'm going to do an artillery op. I need you to drive the CV because we got to build the base. I need you to drive a crane because we need a crane to unload our gun. Now, this for the longest time was similar to the colonial way, minus you didn't really need a base. People would build a base, but you didn't necessarily need the crane. And people are like, well, Kronos, what do you mean? Well, in the past, you could just blow up the flatbed and boom, you'd have your pallet of ammo and you'd have your stuff. So it all worked out in the long run. So I think it was just easier for the Wardens to communicate, hey, we're going to be doing an artillery operation, which got more people into doing artillery. And obviously, the colonial guns can't be stolen. I mean, the Warden guns can't be stolen where the colonial ones could be. So if you rushed a Warden position and say you killed everybody there, that you didn't necessarily have the firepower to kill the guns. Well, they just got to come back, kill you, and they're back to shooting their 120s. Now, for the colonials, if you all get killed and you're sitting there, God forbid if they have a wrench, your op's over and you just gave them a bunch of guns. Again, this doesn't sound like a lot. Now repeat it 100, 1,000 times. Repeat it over the course of the war. Every time it happens, you get people who get a little tired of it. They don't want to see it anymore. You know, one of the biggest things is just the fact you can't capture the Warden guns. If you could capture the Warden guns, it would change everything, because then you could just be like, all right, I'm going away with them. What do you want from me? Um, but if you repeat the same thing over and over again, hey, we lost our guns, the wardens took them. All it took is killing some infantry. For the wardens, I mean, for the colonials, it meant killing infantry and having enough explosive power to get rid of the guns. So it
And
required more work in a way that I just don't think is good.
and even if they didn't steal them, like they come in there with like 3 stickies, the gun's dead.
Well, that's again, that's not the problem. The problem is that it takes a lot more work for a colonial to shut down warden guns, 120 in particular, 150s are about equal, than it does. Actually, the 150s are equal. It takes more time and energy for the colonials to shut down a warden artillery op versus a colonial artillery op, strictly because you can't steal the guns, or you can't, like, imagine this. They just added a feature for the colonials that if they ran up to a warden gun and they pressed the button, it blew up. Right? The balance between using artillery would have been about the same. And some people might, I don't know if any wardens listening out there and it's not having it and wants to disagree, but think of all the steps you have to do to shut down a warden 120 op versus a colonial 120 op. And where does that step become easier? Do you have a wrench? Doesn't matter if you have a wrench, but for the wardens, you can't do anything about it. You can kill the crane, but you can't kill the guns. The guns, which are, by the way, significantly cheaper and don't use a vehicle slot in the MPF.
And can be hammered out at the construction yard too.
Well, yeah, but that's not my point.
No, it's just another add-on. Like, we can hammer ours out in the garage, but again, our garage is going to be more busy than a construction yard. Tenfold.
See, I think that's very minute. My issue is
it's just a small little tick, is what I was getting at.
Yeah. But again, my issue is that every time I tried to shut down a warden artillery op, I needed to also find a way to get enough people in there with enough mammons or enough hydras to blow up the guns, because you can't just kill the infantry and call it a day, especially if they built a bunker base there. They're just going to respawn and kill you. And I've run artillery ops where it's like, okay, they just killed all the infantry. Now what? Well, Cronus, they just jumped in the guns, and then our own AI killed them, or they just walked away with them. Which at the time, for a long time, remember how fast it used to be pushing those guns before they introduced towing?
Run them out or run them into the water. I remember, like, we'd have to do, because there's a lot of awkward times where you have to get up on a beach or awkward spot to get counter already on, and we go get flanked. And I remember one time we only had 20-second spawn timers, and we sprinted right back. And by the time we got there, both of our guns were in the water. Both. And it was only 2 guys. And it was, I mean, less than, it took me, 3 seconds to get my pistol loaded and plus my spawn. I mean, I full dead sprint there.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have time to do that as a colleague with 2 dudes. You know?
Yep.
Not a chance.
That's always been my problem. That's just always been my problem. I mean, the colonial guns do have, like, a really strong advantage with being mobile, especially now that trailers exist. So, but pre-trailers, being mobile, it was kind of okay, but you still spent all that time building a base. It's like, why not just also have a pit to put them in and stuff?
Well,
but that's all in the past. It doesn't matter. In the current meta,
though, that's still my issue, though, is we have to purchase and make still so much more for our quote-unquote advantage to be an advantage. You know, like, I just don't understand how that's an advantage in itself, because I mean, it's still like, if you're going to do a heavy hauler, and you're going to do a heavy hauler for your trailer. If you're not, like, you're going to be going slower than shit. So you're adding just 200 pecons or 400 pecons onto your cost, plus the facility aside. Well, no, you have to add that into the factor, because you have to have a facility to make that. Plus, you have to add in the trailer factory, or you have to then make a trailer, and then you have to take it to the factory just for our 120s to do the thing they're supposed to do. You know, like, that's double the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, I'm not opposed to it since the reason why I brought up all the past stuff, let me clear the air with this. The reason I brought up a lot of the past stuff is simply because it builds a attitude towards things. Like, if you have people say, "Oh, I'm not going to use ships because of the torpedo. It's too strong." Like, there are plenty of people who I've met who they liked ships. DevMan introduced the new torpedo mechanic. They just won't go back out in the water until that's removed. And I'm one of those people. I really don't like how the cheapest ship in the game has gained the most powerful advantage, or rather, game. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just not for me. It really isn't. And if DevMan likes it and they want to keep it, okay.
Real quick, since we were talking about artillery, something I've always wanted with artillery is die packs. Because if there's
What the fuck are those?
when it blows
Essentially
up,
a
it's
smoke
not light.
shell.
No,
Essentially,
no, no. Like when it blows up, if you're running, say you're in the destroyer, when you fire your guns, it splashes like green instead of white, so you know which shells are yours. So if other people are doing arty, I've run into this a couple times where it's like a group over here is doing 150s and this group over here is doing 150s, or a destroyer, or more correctly a battleship are firing. You can't tell which shells are yours unless somebody else stops shooting. So
yeah. I,
it
I
doesn't have to
mean,
be anything in the game, just a color differentiation on whoever's observing for you. Just that. Like you see other shells hit.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but
that's a small thing,
It's
but I
that's
like
just a
it.
niche thing.
I like it. Small, but I do think that could be in very situational things. I mean, for Christ's sake,
Yeah,
we're adding wind socks. We can add that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I just remember there's a that one time it was like us, orcs, and somebody else were just pounding that one city, and it's like we can't tell who's what and landing where because UBGE was there, we were there, orcs were there, and it's like, are those our shells? Are those the other guy's shells?
yeah,
Like, it doesn't have to be
okay,
anything major. It was just something I thought of like a while back. Just be like, your observer, whoever it is,
okay.
can see a different
So
color.
let me just try to clear the air why I kept bringing up past and now. I'm not talking necessarily about balance, is what I was trying to get to. Because like here's an example from a long time ago, before the dusk was nerfed. I mean, I used to only make dusks. It was before they nerfed the dusk, and a few people probably know what I mean by that. It was just so strong. It was way too strong. It was the only weapon you needed. You'd turn a corner, 2 bullets later, boom, the person's dead. You could do it. There were wardens who were like, okay, the dusk is so powerful, I'm not gonna play once that unlocks. If you introduce a mechanic and it blatantly has something that skews it, well, I wouldn't even say blatant, because I don't know how many people have the same opinion as I do about how you kill warden artillery versus clonary artillery, or what we just discussed. Because once it's in somebody's mind that spending the time to do something is just not worth it because either one side or the other has like a huge advantage, then why bother? It's like with the current the Nemesis versus the HTD. If you are a Nemesis and you see an HTD, it's dead. There's nothing it can do. It can shoot you. It's a joke. It so will people stop making not necessarily stop making HTDs, but will you really want to spend the time to take an HTD, drive it to the front, and then spend the time arming it and all this, only to go to the front and then instant gibbed by a nemesis? So once something like that starts to happen, people form a culture around it. Somebody, will who's a salty vet will see a new player going out with an HDD and go, don't bother. They have Nemesis. You'll die in 2 seconds. And the new player might say, nuh-uh, then go to the front. And if that exact thing happens to them, it just puts it in their mind that it's like, okay, maybe this vehicle isn't as good as I thought it was. And they're not going to spend their time rearming it, driving it, and doing all this stuff behind it. You can get around a little bit of that by, say, like, making the HTD be able to be put on the back of a flatbed, and then you can drive it to the front that way, because now you're not spending as much time driving it to where you want to go. Once you cut down on player time, they're more likely to engage with something, which is why, going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, the new MPFs are going to be very broken because it's set it in
You broke out
time
there
and what people believe to be true.
You cut out there for a second.
It's why a lot of people are going to use the new MPF, because it's a set it and forget it. It's a time-saving mechanic. Once people know how the game works, like how a lot of people won't bother with the battle tank because a battle tank dies to 2 outlaws or 2 spathas like very quick. Like, it has its place, but is it worth the time, energy, and effort of making one to use one versus just grabbing a tank that's basically just as effective and a lot easier to build, make, maintain, and then hell, you can put it away at the end of the day if it lives. Because, you know, cultures, metas, and what people say to be true and what really is true is a cultural thing that people build around. Kind of like how Kali Man doesn't like using the LTD anymore because it kind of lost all of its advantages. Outside of what, 45 meter with a bloom the size of New York?
R.I.P. Bomastone.
Yeah, Bomastone still. But Bomastone was also something that, again, that's another cultural thing. New players would say, Wardens, when should I play? People would say, not until after... I don't even know when you would stop, because the Bomastone would just kill you all war long. It's just all war, you're dead.
So, I will say this, going into what you're saying. I have said this for a long time as well. I think the game has a lot of great things about it, and I'm not just harping on things. I do think Gear has a massive proponent in player base, like population. A lot of people won't play if the other side's dominating. And I do think that Gear has a big incentive to a lot of the people. I think if you put it, for example, like when we were on our big win streak, right, the Collies, we had the Stygian Bolt, and they had nothing that could rival that at all. 6 wars on a test, like they had nothing to account for that. Like it was just it was a spree. It was destruction. And then you look at since War 100, the Collies only have a 35% win rate, and that's been over 2 years. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's all Gear. I don't necessarily think it's all population. But I do think there is something to be said about one side having a 35% win rate in over 2 years.
So I'm not big on getting into this statistics of who wins or loses in Foxhole because there's a lot to that.
Oh, there's a lot.
Like there's a lot of intricacies, like when a war starts, whether or not it's after or before an update. Because some would argue that in Foxhole, like again, this is salty vet man talking. It's some wars matter more than others, 100%. Simply because it's an update war.
Oh yeah.
Or if a war starts during Christmas. It's honestly like, who gives a flub who wins? But
it was like the war 2 wars ago or whatever. It was like what, a 2.5 week war. It's like nobody cared. I didn't even play.
Yeah, and okay, so 99% the faction with the most pop wins. That's because you're putting more hours into your faction. More hours into your faction means more work done. More work done means more supplies, more BMETs, more EMETs, more explosives, more everything. But say all of that aside, there are certain things in Foxhole you have to accept to be true. And if one side has more people and you're going to be upset that they're going to win because they have more people, then maybe Foxhole's not the game for you. There are certain gripes that people can have with Foxhole, like okay, so like pre Tremola for the Colonials, and like before Colonials had the Lumiere, before they had a Tremola that was actually worth its weight to fire at defenses. What did the Colonials have to destroy concrete or tier 2? For their infantry, right? You didn't have cutlers, so you couldn't bring that. You didn't have the Lumiere, so what are you supposed to do? You had nothing. You had Mammons up until Hydras were unlocked and the Dascus, right? The ISG. But that was countered by AT guns. You can't suppress AT guns. So you would go set up your DAS. Right. So no matter what you did, right? You didn't have a lot of options when it came to what you killed with concrete. And that upset a lot of people. But once that balance was basically fixed by... Once the Tremola was buffed to basically be a cutler, there was a lot of wardens who complained, and there was a couple of colonials who were like, it doesn't do as much damage as an RPG. But you know what stopped? People bitching about not having a way to basically do what the other side does. You're asymmetrical, but equal in, like, you're near equal in, you're so close to near equal on how much damage an infantry soldier can carry that there's nothing left to complain about. Oh, you can shoot over walls. Okay, but you can shoot from behind a tree and not get shot at. Because you have the range. You know, it's these little things that once they are balanced to a way that makes players happy, and it just makes too much sense to them, that it's like, okay, they carry 3,000 damage, I carry 3,000 damage. Whatever. They're not going to complain about it, and it's no longer really a problem. Because if it was, the first place you'd hear all the bitching is on Reddit.
Reddit is a fucking cesspool, and I think the Foxhole Reddit should be...
Yeah, but it's
part of the specialty of the game, though. It is some of the charm.
But that's a whole other conversation about that.
Oh, 100%.
It's just okay. It's just like the Colonial Scout uniform versus the Warden Scout uniform. Who remembers the fact that the Wardens used to show up 70% of the time, and the Colonials only it was like 65 or something. Like, the Wardens legitimately had worse recon outfits. That didn't even, like, make it less than a war or something before it just got buffed to be equal, because it didn't make sense, and it didn't. If that had gone through and that had been in Live Wars, you would hear complaints about it all the time. Oh, well, we would partisan more, or we wouldn't get caught as often, we'd do more damage if it wasn't for the what's it called? The Scout uniform imbalance. Yeah. Right. And there's legitimate complaints about the Argonaut before DevMan did the weight system. The Argonaut, that's it. You can't catch it. You're not going to catch it. It's not very fun for you to try and catch it, but you're not going to catch it. It's just going to keep driving away from you with all of its Havoc charges or satchels back then, and the only thing you can do is complain. So DevMan introduced the weight system, and now if you want a partisan, you can't just do it because you have a clear, massive advantage. And now...
And they took an inventory slot from it, too.
Right, and now we could go into the Ducky, and I could complain about the Ducky imbalance, but that's, again, a conversation for another time.
Yes.
The Ducky people were complaining. No, I'm just saying, like...
The Duckies are the worst types of complainers, man. Those filthy partisans. Ugh.
Again, it's just one of those little things that...
I think I pick up what you're putting down. Well, I'm just saying, I pick up what you're putting down. I think there are a lot of things to talk about, and there's a lot of things you could complain about. I think relatively right now, like the devs are doing for what they can a decent job at the balance of the game. My whole point into why I guess this all started from, do you think the gunboats are going to be even? My whole point in this is I think Kali Navy, and to be fair, the track record has shown the past 2 updates Kali Navy has gotten love. I think it needs more, but it is being looked at. There's obviously a problem with the Colonial Navy at the moment, and I don't think it's sitting in a good spot. That being said, though, and the reason I talk about this so much is leading into the last question. Do you guys think the game is ready for air? Now, whether you say yes or no, I want to know your opinion. It's going to come in August regardless of what we want, maybe, depending on how it all shakes up. Do you think the game is ready for air? Do you think it's balanced enough? And what... This is a loaded question, so if you need to repeat it, I can. Do you think the game's ready for air? And then with that, what would you guys like to see out of the air update? I'm just going to leave that open-ended question. I definitely want to leave that. I'm very intrigued to see what you guys both say on that. I think we are intrigued to see what you guys will say.
I'm going to be a disappointment simply because I know none of the mechanics. I know none of the features. I know none of how it's going to be interacting with the game. I don't know the cost of the vehicles. I don't know how much damage they can carry. I don't know how they're going to interact with absolutely any mechanic in the game. The only thing I can infer is that it looks like they're going to be like, I'm running around my facility and then I can look up, or I'm going to see the plane coming at me from a distance, and then probably when it's over... So, like, when it's overhead of me, I don't think I'll see the aircraft. I think it'll just be a shadow above my head. But, I mean, it's nothing but speculation, so I have nothing better to say other than that, like, I don't care if it's ready or not. I'm just more interested in seeing how to make these planes. But I just want to make them.
I do have a question with that as well, too, by the way.
Okay, let's go after your buddy talks.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, for sure. I was just saying I want to keep that popular.
I have no info. I have no... I don't know. I don't have any speculation onto how this will work. So, meh. Just meh for me. There's no real answer.
Madine?
One thing I'm going to say now is when obviously we're going to have new buildings, probably have some kind of new ship. Personally, I would like to see a fuel ship. That's just me. Because we already know that one of ours is not amphibious, can land in the water just because of the way the bottom of it and the wave break on the front. But I sincerely hope that when we get close to this, they do a dev branch and they leave the dev branch open for a long time. Because people are going to need to test out these planes, test out whatever facilities, hangar, airport, airfield, whatever new things that we're going to have to make and test, the new bombs, wherever they end up getting made. I think they need to keep the dev branch open for it for longer than they normally keep the dev branch open. Because, I mean, we know we're getting a bomber, a troop transport, and I assume some sort of fighter, which means the Colonials, which means they're probably getting 2 other, maybe 3 other planes. And this kind of goes back to when they did, like, Navy. When they first introduced the Navy, they only did half and half. Like, we got the destroyer, they got the submarine, whatever. So... You remember they kept the dev branch open for a while, but this one's going to be much, much bigger. And people are going to need time to get acclimated to how you build them. Is there going to be a new metal? Is there going to be a new fuel? do we repair? Is there going to be only player built outfield? Player built airfields? Are there map placed airfields? Where do we repair the planes? How do we repair it? Does it take special metals?
Do you know about the
Uh,
airfield in Stone Cradle?
oh yeah.
Okay, just throwing that in there real quick.
Like for our bunkers, is it going to be manned AI, automatic AI, AA? Sorry, I've been up for
I know, yeah,
like 20 hours.
there's a
My
lot of
brain is
there's a lot of.
yeah. If my brain was a car, I'd be stuck in idle right now. Um, is it like going to take a different crafting material, like rare metals? Does it take rare metals? Like, are we getting spotlights? For anti-bombing, for shooting them.
Right.
For example, the ships are our current ships, the destroyer, frigate, and battleships. Are they getting AA capability? Is it going to be manned? Is it going to be automatic? If they're
I mean, to
anchored,
be fair, on the back of the battleship, as much as those are mortars, they look like AA guns.
yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. But I mean, well, you just said when they're anchored, does the AA turn on when they're anchored?
Probably. Again, too much speculation to say anything that matters about air. I mean, it looks like they're all low altitude fighters and bombers because they all have open cockpits and gunner seats. So that makes sense. And I just, I don't
Well,
know. Because imagine if bombers are not that expensive to make, but that would also mean that like they don't do a lot of damage. So are we gonna see like waves and waves of bombers just falling out of the sky? What happens if two planes hit each other? They obviously probably aren't going to bump into each other, which indicates that did DevMan add collision? Or am I gonna start driving down roads, hit front ending people, and then having to go back and repair my truck?
sorry, I
Who
just
knows?
imagine like a couple bombers flying. You hear clunk, 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 clunk,
Nope.
clunk.
The one
The-
person in my chat said bombers should do massive damage, but be expensive as fuck. I could kind of see the bombers costing rare metals, like a rare metal a bomber, and each bomber is like it's basically dropping 250s, if that would make sense.
Holy sh! What? Oh my. Okay. Dude, can you imagine that? What?
Yeah, but rare metals. Yeah, but it costs if it costs
Dude.
rare metals. So like, how many chieftains do you have to rush to kill a decent concrete piece, right? A chieftain has health, it has armor, and it has all of this other stuff that keeps it alive. Now imagine a bomber. Is it going to be heavily armored versus what? How much damage can it take? Will AA be abundant? Will AA not be abundant? Again,
How many runs can it make? How much fuel does it have?
I mean,
right.
dude,
And again,
Like what's the time over
right.
target? Like how long can it
guys,
linger?
but this is all you have to imagine, though. Groups like 420st are not gonna care about the cost, the repercussions. They're going to horde tactic. Like, dude, I would hate to see the day that 420th gets 40 planes in the sky, and they're going to lose 20 of them due to AA alone. But AA, much like a Mammon Rush or AI, can't kill everyone. And if they at least drop half of their bomb load, mother of God, you're dropping... We at least saw the planes drop 5 bombs. 5 250s
You're
over the same
strapping-
load.
So you're basically saying the bombers are going to be 150s, not 250s.
I mean, they would have... Because it's 5 shells. I mean, at minimum, we saw 5 bombs drop out of the clip. If it dropped even 150s, if you had 50% of 4... And obviously, again, this is all imaginary speculation. We can't know anything until we get our hands on it. But they're going to have to balance this in a way... Because, again, I don't want the bombers to be shit. To be honest, I want to fly the bombers a lot. Personally, I just love bombers. But, I know that they can't be overpowered, and if they are, like, the cost is going to have to be so big that it's just, if you lose a plane, you're going to be pissed. And at the other half, if there's
Not
plane...
necessarily, because they look to be low altitude fighters and bombers. So if they're low altitude, they should be pretty darn easy to hit. I could argue that the bombers look like they're going to play a little bit like how battleships play right now. You don't take a battleship out until you pretty much secure the waters and like have full control, because you just don't take them out. Because what good are they besides glorified concrete killers? If an enemy brings a battleship or a frigate out or a destroyer, you don't bring a battleship out. You just bring a single submarine, and it does more work effectively for the cost.
I do have something I want to drop on you guys. I want to know what you think. So every single aspect of this game has the biggest, baddest toy, right? Tanks have super heavies. Arty has railstorm cannons. Boats have battleships. What if they gave us a smaller rocket or bomb that was like a mini nuke, like a Fat Man, right? What if they gave us something like that in the plane form, and it took 2 days to fuel it up, and they saw it on map fueling, and once it's in the air, you lose the radar signature, but when it comes close, and I don't even know, God forbid, if there will be hexes, but if it does come to a hex, you would hear the nuke siren going off, but it wouldn't show the position. What if there was like a small nuke dropper, like a big plane? You know what I mean?
Like an Earl Grey, the Earl Grey,
Enola Gay.
Well, I mean, that tea was hot.
I mean, but imagine, dude, like, that'd be cool.
It would, but see, this is where a lot of people come into the argument. That's not fair. Like people with railstorm cannons, it's not fair that the railstorm cannon could fire over the hexes. The war has to come to an end. There needs to be a point when the war ends, and for some people, they just don't like the way railstorm cannons basically kill their concrete bases that they spent 3 or 4 weeks on. But it's like, my dude, you built at the exact point where the border is, and the moment a border base spawns, everybody jumps into your well-placed fortified concrete base, and you just artillery the border base to death. Do you just want the war to go on forever? Do you want to make M-subs until the day you die? Because that's the only option I see.
Just flank, bro.
It's just got to end. Yeah, the war's got to end.
I would love an idea of a Enola Gay, like, big-ass super bomber, you know, like last tech, even after the V2 rocket techs. Call it the Little Man or something like that, and have a plane nuke bomber. That'd be fucking sick. I don't know. I would love to see them add some spice and flavor in it. Madine, I do hear you out though. Now, to be fair, in their update when they did drop the trailer, they said don't freak out if you don't see your plane because we already have a lot more coming. I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We're obviously going to get some form of fighter, and they're going to get some form of bomber. Actually, it'd be kind of amusing if the fighters were like half tracks. You could put different loads on them.
I am kind of curious. Well, I think it. I don't know. I do think different loadouts would be cool for planes, but I think that's going to be after we get 100 dudes in the air. You know what I mean? Like pump the brakes, man. We don't even have dudes in the air yet, unless you're fucking Cronus in a Spatha that gets glitched into the enemy lines. Like, you remember that Spatha we were in, and we got thrown into... I still have that clip, by the way.
Yeah, you guys went like, 30, 40 yards? Just like...
Who knows? Stuff happens in Foxhole. It's fine. But again, like... it's just me who I am. I have no interest in running these things. I just want to make them.
Well, I know who I'm calling to
I
get my ass
I
in the
want to
bomber.
build the logistics center to make one.
We're just gonna go, 420 in your hex, and you can give a zoo's worth of monkeys like
but so
bombers. Go, my children,
again,
have fun. You just hear the.
I know everything's speculation right now, and I'm still speculating on like how everything is going to work. But this is my opinion. I think fighters are going to be dirt cheap. I think fighter planes are going to be strictly a PvP thing, and maybe they'll have 12-7, but they're not going to do enough damage for anybody to care about. Like if a warden fighter was flying over my facility right now, I'd be like, that's annoying, but at least I'm not worried about it type of deal.
Well, and to be honest, you'd probably be able to shoot it down real easy too.
Right.
I would
But see, that's what I'm getting at.
My whole premise with this though, I really hope they keep the idea of balance for both sides in check here. But the other biggest thing that the biggest thing I'm worried about is this is going to be the first type of vehicle that is going to be solely manned. There's no vehicle in the game besides logistics. There's no tank in the game. There's no armored car in the game. Unless you're in an emplaced gun, there's nothing else in the game where you can do damage to other players in a solo vehicle.
Surely that guy won't still be in the bunker.
This is the first time you're going to have a solo pilot
doing damage.
And that could be that is something we need to be watching for. These are things that it might not be an issue that it's flying over your base, but what is the issue is when that dude comes and fucking snipes your truck full of sulfur that you've been farming for the past hour, because he can shoot your logi truck with 12-7 and blow it up. That,
or your train,
or God forbid, what if that, because we already know the wardens get a cannon on their gun, on their plane. Well, I don't know the caliber, but what if they snipe my fucking train? It wasn't weird for us to have trains get gunned down by planes. These are all things
we had
we're gonna have to,
like the Thunderbolt and stuff like that. That was kind of specialized against it.
Well, so
my
thing is, like, these are going to be things we have to think about. Your Logicore might get rattled to the bones if you have fighters in the skies in your backline 24/7.
I don't think fighter planes will have that much fuel. I don't think fighters or bombers are going to have a metric fuck ton of.
I think you're right. I'm just saying these are things to speculate,
right?
To look at, think about.
Can I just really stop, because there's one funny part we've completely neglected about the fighters and bombers. Did you guys forget about the paratroopers already?
I mean, you know what? Here's my next piece into the paratroopers. Now we're getting into the gabagool. Have you seen the 3D model of the paratrooper plane?
I've seen the 3D model, yeah.
So we don't know it for a fact yet, but it does look like it lands in water.
Yeah, it very much looks like a combination of a Catalina and a C-119.
So
okay, both me and you are going to probably say the same thing. Maybe, I don't know.
Go ahead and drop it. What do you think?
I'm perfectly fine with if the colonial plane can land in water. With that, because do you remember a long time ago, DevMan said they had 14 more uniforms to show off, but they just never did. I think 7 for Colonial, 7 for Wardens.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember that.
The Colonials are supposed to have the more advanced Navy. So what if they take that to heart and they give us like a Marine outfit, like like an actual Marine outfit that lets you swim with gear and weapons? Now, I say that. What would be the equivalent for the Wardens? You couldn't, and not necessarily a Marine outfit, but like, imagine if they got some sort of gear that let them I wish I could say mountain climbing, right?
I
Like
was
the
just about to say
Fallschirmjägers.
alpine, like
Right,
alpine gear.
yeah, like Fallschirmjägers and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So what if the wardens get a better like airborne Fallschirmjäger? Like imagine if there's an airborne outfit and it just lets the wardens have more equipment on them when they jump out of the plane, right? So like the whole point of the colonial drop airborne ship would be like you land in the water, you let your marines out, they can scuttle to the island and do something. I don't know. It's the again, cool speculation, cool ideas, but it's all that. It's just speculative.
I mean, that's
another
the gabagool though, baby. Like we're talking
Yeah.
about it, and then what if the dev ever watches this stream and they're like, write this shit down. This shit's you know what? Like that's a long shot, but I'm saying, what if they're like, yo, these guys are cooking. Let's
This is gas. Let's
let's
like,
whip this up. You know what I mean? This
something
is
I
what
was
this
talking about
is.
with Berg beforehand was, okay, it's an amphibious plane. Well, that's convenient. Here's a ship that can crap out, hundreds of people. Jump off the ship, get in the plane, drops off 15, 20 people. Plane comes back, lands, gets into the ship. More people jump in the plane, drop off. Just a nice little circle.
They have a refueling station or a refueling boat for all the large carriers, and I mean, God forbid if they gave us an aircraft carrier. I mean, don't say it's not possible, but these are all things that I've been talking to a lot of my friends about it, and I just think, dude, if they do it right, dude. Also, another funny, 1 second. What if they gave us a bouncing bomb and we could actually break the Great Warden Dam? Just saying.
Okay, now you're just reaching levels of speculation. It's funny.
That's why it was it was a good laugh, but it would be funny.
Another thing I was thinking about earlier was, how we have, like radios, radio backpacks, watchtowers and stuff, and that's generally for land. For subs, you have to use, unless they're on the surface, you have to use sonar. What if we get a third to where radar only picks up planes? And or also remember, they said that the weather would be much more relevant. So we're probably going to have to actually, use, and hopefully they'll update the weather stations to be better than, is it going to rain? Where? Somewhere.
See,
What time?
so can I, let me, I'm going to throw I'm going to throw out an idea. Right. People run ops when they have the time to run an op.
Mm-hmm.
A weather station telling them they can't run their plane op because it's going to rain or snow does not change the fact that they are going to run an op. But the idea that somebody's built a weather station to tell you 2 days from now that it's going to snow, but at the same time, the weather stations seem to be a little like they're inhospitable to use unless you have enough people using them. Because if you were to know 2 days from now it's going to snow, and that's all you knew, you didn't know when, you didn't know the intensity, you didn't know what. I right now, I still don't know what the weather stations are good.
Yeah.
Hey, Kronus, sorry to interrupt you, but this is actually kind of cool. Keezer said for one of the one of the uniforms, what if they gave a ground crew uniform for the Logiman for quick repair and higher encumbrance to load the planes?
Kind of moot and pointless because it'd look cool. It'd be like the same thing as having like a train conductor uniform. It's more LARP and role play than it would be practical. Like take the engineering outfit right now. Very rarely do I ever find myself really reaching for one. Like, have you seen my facility south of, like, not my facility, I should say, have you seen the WL facility south of it, but have you seen the funny power grid that I did?
No.
Okay. If you were to tune into my stream for a couple of seconds, in just a few seconds, I'll show you the amount of LARP that I did for the sake of my own sanity. And I spent many hours making this work because LARP.
Do you want me to show the
It was the
YouTube
only
video too?
time. You can. It's entirely up to you if you want to show it. But I was just legitimately LARPing here to um, balance out the grid. So we have a very big facility because we're producing ships this war. We're also making train cars and we're going to be selling BTs. So I needed a very big power grid. And to organize that power grid, I needed to have a system of figuring out what power pole does what. So, like, we had to organize our power grid so we have a right and a left side, or west and east, and then I have one grid on one side, on this side for my power grid, and then on this side my other power grid. Now, everything you see around here, right, everything here was built with a CV or by hand or what have you. Never ever did I reach for the engineering outfit to do anything, except for when I was building these power poles, because it let me carry 100 BMATs versus 80. Such a minute difference that it's more LARP than anything. So if they introduce a LARP uniform, then cool. But I'd rather have something that's a little more practical.
I think the ammo encumbrance would be really nice. Like carry more shells or bombs or something. Maybe be able to jog with a sprint with a large item or something.
So, like, right now, the only time people use, like, engineering uniforms or tanker uniforms is because you do want to carry those extra 20, extra 30 BMATs. It just makes your life a little bit better at the front, but it's not enough to be like, I'm not walking around with 400 or 500 BMATs and just still full sprinting. I don't mind a little LARP, but I also don't like the idea of adding uniforms that people so seldom use.
I wish they would tweak the NG one a little bit to help further differentiate it from the tanker uniform, because it's kind of too similar for what it does. And to be fair, about the only time I ever, I think I muted myself.
No, we're hearing you. I hear you.
There we go. About the only time I ever grab the NG one is when I'm being a frontline tank prepper, just so I can carry a little bit extra BMATs, and it makes me easy to spot because it's got a backpack on it. And honestly, on the front line, once you've repaired a couple of guys' tanks once or twice, they're real happy to see you and your backpack show up. But I wish it did have a little bit more of a differentiating abilities than the tanker uniform.
Something. Well, there's a few things.
You carry tools there. You can carry a hammer,
a
sledgehammer.
That's what I've wanted for a long time.
Yeah, it has. Your tools have no weight.
You know where the bayonet slot goes in the engineer uniform? It can carry one tool in that slot, encumbrance free.
You hit F and it swaps it. You got your shovel and your hammer. It doesn't take a slot. But either way,
I do agree though. There are a lot of niche uniforms that don't really matter. But one thing that I want to know what you thought of, or you thought of, what do you guys think we're going to be able to drop logi-wise out of planes? Because that's my whole big premise is, are you going to have to drop the men fully equipped like an actual paratrooper, or are you going to be able to do a supply run drop mission? Are you going to be able to drop a crate full of Hydras and the demolitions team? Like, the objectives for a paratrooper were not partisan. I mean, it was, well, that's exactly what it was. But the idea was you'd go break a bridge. So, resupply, or they couldn't come reinforce, right? And then hold a bridge. And then, or go break the 88s or the big AA storm cannons. Wink, wink. Which,
we don't know if we're getting, so that may be an entirely viable thing.
And to be honest, something I'm seeing, the real benefit of paratroopers and being able to drop Hydras or Havocs would be go take out AA systems so you can go lay out a bombing run. That's the real, like, things I'm seeing. You know, I would really enjoy if I could go for, like, you know, let's say I have an op for Saturday, right? Friday night, we go out and we go do pair drops all night long and go break up their AA network to shits galore. And then Saturday morning, From Who the Bell Tolls is getting played on the radio as we go drop, you know, our 250s, put some warheads on some foreheads, and have a good old time, you know? That's the type of shit I think would be fun.
Another aspect of the cargo drop is like how accurate assuming they have it, how accurate is it?
Are you going to
Like,
give the enemies
well, I mean, yeah. Oh, lunaires are raining from the sky. You know, getting cut off, like they blow the bridges or, you know, whatever. You know, you're cut off from Logi. How much can the plane drop? How accurate is the drop? Is it efficient to drop? Like,
are we going to be able to drop Jeeps?
Sure.
Yeah, again,
we're doing a lot of speculation here, which is not bad. But
it's just all imaginative.
But it's a lot of fun. But as you can see, DevMan takes a lot from history. For example, the Colonial Submarine is an example of a British submarine.
Trash.
Sorry. Either way, but like,
I mean, our submarine I see is more like the 120 definitely does have its uses when you're blowing up. Like, oh, I see you've put your ammo facility just a little too close to the shore. I'm gonna crap on
it has very small uses.
Yeah, it's definitely the British / I think there's a French one that was kind of similar, but the name's escaping me.
Yeah,
but I get what you're saying. Like, yeah.
But I'm saying, like, use as an example of what you want to speculate on DevMan's doing. For example, why did DevMan put Hydras and Havoc charges on pallets? Are we going to be able to airdrop pallets?
Well, that's my question. You know, is this... Are we going to be able to drop a pallet size, or is this going to be, like, a small pallet? Are we getting... you know...
All right, I don't want to throw in speculation here. This is a wish. This is a want. This is a desire. This is DevMan. If you're listening, write this down and add it. I want a cargo plane. I don't care what it does. I preferably it carries 2 shipping containers. I don't care if it eats petrol. I don't care if it eats a lot of petrol. I want a cargo plane. It has to carry at least 1 to 2 shipping containers. That's all I want.
We did talk about this. Long-range supply.
I want it. Because I don't care what I got to do for it. I just want it.
My question is, and I'm not very well educated in the Air Force of the U.S. Did a cargo plane... Was there cargo planes big enough to drop or fly over tanks? I don't think there was.
World War II?
Yeah, I really don't know.
World War II, the American military basically made a smaller version of the Stuart. I think it might have been the British. It was the British. The Tech Track? No, the Tech Track or something. I wouldn't even call it a tank.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Or something.
Yeah.
In short, no, I'm being told from my chat. But I swear... There was some sort of goal about moving an armored vehicle via plane. I don't know if it was the British or... I'm leaning more into the British tried something.
I know the Americans had the M22 Locust. I was meaning if there was a plane big enough to drive or haul like a Sherman.
Like a Sherman?
Yeah.
No.
And that's what I didn't... I know we can airdrop an Abrams now, but... This is World War II, World War I we're talking about.
Like, that's where you were going. And I'm going to go with the overall answer is no. And even if DevMan gave me the ability to... airdrop... I couldn't imagine how broken the game would be if you could airdrop tanks. Even just a single tank can do way too much damage.
I was thinking...
way too much.
I was honestly, the reason I asked that, I was thinking armored cars for airdrops.
I think so.
I think an armored car would not be. Do I think it'd be strong? Yes. Do I think it should be immensely expensive to airdrop it? Yes. But do I think that there would be a need for a,
okay. So let
definitely drop Jeeps during it, so.
let me ruin your hopes and dreams right now, because let's say DevMan heard that idea for armored cars, right? And went with it. You do realize that means the Wardens can airdrop flame armored cars behind your lines.
Well,
right?
and we would get the, but to be fair, we'd get the dual RPG one too, which would be devastating.
What's gonna burn a facility to the ground? Your Gemini could maybe kill some not concreted foundations and maybe pop a building, but man, imagine waking up and all your tier 2's on fire and you can't do anything. Well, not necessarily you can't do anything about it, but like imagine all of your tier 2's on fire.
Well, I mean, to be
before
fair,
you tech
though,
concrete.
what if we got tankettes though, and we had the same thing? Because the tankette's not. It's literally.
So
it says it's an armored car. It is an armored car.
So if you go up to tankettes, that means the Wardens would be able to airdrop their scout tanks.
No, scout tanks are a different. Because if you look at it, our tankettes are labeled as armored cars. Our tankettes are actually designed to go against their the hack and the gack.
Okay. Well, okay.
Theoretically.
So if you did that, then yeah, okay, then you could airdrop them. Yeah, but I just don't like that. I don't like that too much. And at the end of the day, I think when we airdrop troops, because we know that there'll be airdropping soldiers, I think they're going to have some sort of airborne uniform that you have to have, because it's going to limit your inventory and limit what you can take, because you're not going to airdrop with a Venom, you're not going to airdrop with a Cutler, you're not going to airdrop with a Lumiere. You're going to airdrop, you're going to land, and then you're going to have to do like a lot of what the Airborne did. You have to find your box of goodies, open it, and then you get your Venom, then you get your Cutler, then you get your toys, which if that becomes a thing, dude, that's going to be scary. Imagine just like 40, 50 people with just airdropping in the back lines as partisans. I mean, hey, they don't have partisan out of uniforms. That's good. Cool. So they airdrop. Now what? Now they got to get their Cutlers. It's still a scary idea.
I mean, but to be the other half of that, I mean, it's both sides. And I mean, then you have dudes
it's both
that
sides.
There's no everyone on frontline hex. It's not everyone. It's like, guys, we got about fucking 50 air troopers in the back hexes. We need a QRF stat, and you get you'd have real half tracks have to go like gun some air troopers down, and you have all of these different elements to the game that are just gonna creme de la creme. The strategy, you're not gonna be able to hold a bridge possibly every day now. You're not. You might not be able to.
Which is good.
And I love that we're gonna be able to have a way to stop stalemates, like. And you were talking about how hard it is to kill Warden Artie. I mean, it's still easier to kill Kali, but I'm saying we have
just an example there.
Flank. We have flanks. We have actual opportunities to go make the plays.
To break
exactly.
Right.
Flip side.
Let me just butt in. It's almost 9, and
it's actually. I was just about to say after Madine's here. After his comment, and I can cut it here, actually. 2 hours is my cutoff.
You go with Madine. Yeah, go Madine.
Flip side of that is the Logiman / stubbornness in me. I have a great appeal to just do, like, everything's cut off. Nah, man, it's Berlin airlift time. Nope.
Right, that's why I want a cargo plane.
Is not falling.
That's
I want it.
Nope, we're running planes for the next 4 days.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Do you remember that? Remember when the Bass was cut off?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Now okay, so we're gonna end on this note. Now imagine the Bass cut off surrounded on all sides, holding out with what's in the seaport, and then all of a sudden, cargo planes from above dropping shipping containers, and people are scrambling to get cranes and bringing them to the depot. And oh my god, it'd be so
dude,
cool.
it'd be
Yeah,
anarchy.
that'd be so cool.
Well, anyway,
It'd be cool,
guys, thank you guys for joining on the Bonecast. I really appreciate you guys giving me your time this weekend.
Glad to help.
Problem.
Guys, again, thank you so much. Everyone who followed the live stream and was here, appreciate you. Guys, we're going to end the video here. We're going to go down and Gaming 1 if you guys have any questions after the video. I think Cronus is going to bounce. But go ahead and give him a like and a follow. I appreciate you guys.
He's got them rares he's got to go after.
All right, so
I've just been running around my facility.
thank you guys again. Thank you guys. I will catch you guys on the next week. See ya.
Yep.